Christmas is just around the corner, so we've got an early Christmas present for all you Bulldog fans here on Dear Old State. Today, we are rejoined by Mississippi State head baseball coach Brian O'Connor. Coach Oak, welcome back to the show. We didn't run you off, man. You're back for more. We appreciate that.
Yeah, Joel, it's great to be back. I appreciate you guys having me here in studio and just to get a chance to, been on the job now 6.5 months and kind of, recap fall ball and where we're at moving into preseason practice in January, but it's great to be back. Thank you.
Yeah, as we wrapped up fall, even when we were in the midst of fall ball, I was just, looking at those scrimmages, looking at those practices and the exhibition games that we had, and just the amount of talent that is up and down that roster is really remarkable. And you don't have you need any easy decisions coming up between now and the spring, because it's going to be tough to fill out that lineup every day. But that's what you want. You want that competition. You want that amount of talent out there. But just how pleased were you with what you were able to get accomplished this fall?
Well, I was very pleased, Logan. Certainly, we feel good about what our talent level looked like in the fall. But most importantly, we wanted the players initially to understand how we're going to work and the pace at which we're going to work, and the things that we're going to demand every day for them to be the best players, and ultimately us to have the best team that we can possibly have. And after the first couple of weeks, that started to take shape, and feel good about that, and had some really competitive inter-squad games, and then certainly the 2 outside games, and just really like where we're at. I think the team chemistry is really good. At the end of the fall, in that early November phase, I had an individual meeting, 45-minute meeting with every player individually, and just about how they did in the fall, what they need to do moving into the preseason and season, and then talked about our team and how they felt about playing in the program, and to a man, almost every one of them talked about how tight-knit of a group it is, even though you get transfers, you got high school players, you got returning players. I was just really proud of them, because they were more concerned about the guy to their right and left than they were themselves, and they poured into each other and challenged each other. But that competition that you talk about, that's what you want, right? That's what you want first and foremost as a player. That's why you come to a place like Mississippi State, because you're going to be first and foremost challenged by the guys that are in your own dugout. It's only when we're challenged, that we find out how great we can really be. And, whatever it is you do, me as a head coach, the players, whatever it might be, when you put yourself in the arena against the best, then you find out, right? And so that's what they decided to come here and take on the challenge, and they knew what that is about. And, that competitiveness within the team itself for opportunities, will ultimately, the right guys will rise up to be the right players from Mississippi State.
Was there anything in particular that stood out to you in the fall, whether it's on the mound, whether it's the lineup, what things maybe jump off the page to you that in the fall? And I know it's a weird time where you're evaluating some guys maybe you're not as familiar with. Some guys, obviously, you're very familiar with, having coached them at Virginia. So, maybe not necessarily looking so much at statistics or whatever, but was there any couple things that maybe hopped off the page to you that you saw over the course of the fall?
Well, I'd say generally that we've got a group of young men that really are driven and aspire to be the best that they can be. They're incredible, and you have to be. That, like, this kind of place in this league demands that, right? That you bring it every day and challenge yourself to be the best player that you can be. This league, as you guys know, 30 league games, it demands that every night you are ready to go, because the other team in the other dugout has a lot of talent too, and they'll be ready to go as well. And so that's exciting. It's part of the reason you come to Mississippi State to coach and to play is that. But I'll tell you, I was really impressed with the talent and the quality of our pitching. We got some pretty big key transfers, but that group of sophomore pitchers that had some opportunities last year, and to see their growth, although I was not here last year, but Coach Parker to talk about where they're at right now compared to they were a year ago. You know, McPherson, Foster, Duke Stone, Dane Burns, you know, Jack Gleason had a really nice fall, you know, and right on down the line, a number of them were really outstanding. And so, but the thing is, Joel, they just don't have that much game experience right now. So that's what I'm excited to see moving into the spring is you take that talent and then they gain the experience. You got a chance as the season moves on to have something pretty special, and that's going to be a very, very key part for this team to be as successful as we want to be.
Joel and we've got a series going on the podcast where we've talking to a lot of the baseball players, and we're about maybe a third of the way through right now. But every player that we have talked to has talked about how they've gelled together that quickly, and that's something that you brought up earlier in the show too. Is just how much team chemistry has already been built this first fall. It's most of these guys' first time sharing a locker room together,
right? And
they've came together that close. But one of the cool things that I've seen this fall is kind of how you culminated the fall with the Iron Dog Challenge, and just how I mean, it was early in the morning. I don't get up early in the morning for most, but I showed up at 6 a.m. For that, and it was a really cool event to watch. The guys just you wore them out before the sun had kind of come up that day. But how cool was that? How important was that to kind of build that team chemistry, because they were all kind of competing as an individual and on their own little individual teams, but as a collective team all together?
Well, you know, when you talk about, Logan, when you talk about team chemistry, you know, the hot word that everybody's used for a decade is culture and whatnot. You can accomplish where you want to be as a unit if you're intentional about it. And, you know, whether that is, you know, how you finish practice every day, how you do certain drills, you know, the words that come out of our mouth about serving each other before yourself. And so when you set up practices week to week, you know, what you do, there's got to be intentionality to it. Ultimately, if you want to create that competitive, great team chemistry culture that you want. And so the Iron Dog Challenge was just one of that. When we, you know, finished up fall baseball, we started that, and we had a different challenge every day. And, you know, it lasted about 2.5 weeks, and it culminated with that, you know, obstacle course that you saw early that morning. And I'll tell you, you know, when you do something like that, and a lot of the players hadn't done it before, you know, initially there's a little bit of hesitation. Wait, what's this? But within 3 or 4 days, they loved it. Mm-hmm. And to see the competitive juices come out, that they want to win, right? They want to do the best they can. So, you know, it was intentional, not only to push themselves physically and mentally, but also, most importantly, to bring the group together, right? To see them cheering a guy on that's, you know, doing something longer than anybody else and rally around them is great, you know, and the sacrifices that they make for themselves and for each other, you know, with those kind of challenges creates that bond and that chemistry that you're looking for. And, you know, I've always said this, you right now, you want great team chemistry. It's better than not having it, right? Mm-hmm. The reality is, once the season rolls around and you lose a ball game, maybe you thought you should have won, you lose it late, or you lose a couple in a row, or, you know, somebody's not playing as much as they want to play, that's when it's tested, right? That's when you truly find out, you know, what kind of men you have in that clubhouse.
We're going to tie those two questions together then just a little bit with this one, I think, talking about the chemistry piece, and then talking about, obviously, maybe some guys that don't get to play that maybe wish they had more playing time things, because you have a deep roster. Mm-hmm. That's one of the themes that's come up consistently with some of the guys that we've talked to, the lineups. A couple of your guys have said in those fall scrimmages, it's like either one of those lineups could have been, you know, a weekend lineup for somebody. I mean, it's that deep of a deal. How do you manage a lineup when you have so many options, and you've obviously coached a bunch of teams over the course of your career? How deep is this roster and the number of options you have?
Well, I mean, I don't think you truly know how deep it is until you play somebody else in the other dugout, right?
Yeah.
And you get into the spring, you know, because you get transfer players, you got returning players that have done some pretty special things, and then it's just got to all come together and work together. And you know, like we said, we'd rather have that than not enough pieces. And so it's ultimately going to draw the best out of each and every one of them, and we'll find out, right? You know, who the guys are that we can count on. And you know, what you might do is early on in the season there might be, you know, a little bit of a rotation in some of the positions to just kind of see how do they handle it, and you know, can you count on them on a more consistent basis? And then, you know, God forbid, you know, injuries always happen, things happen. So, you know, you're never quite as deep as you think you are, right? When things happen. So, you know, I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the opportunities that our guys have, and to go out there and earn it. You know, as we were talking before the show, college baseball, the timing of the calendar is incredibly challenging. Now, listen, nobody feels sorry for us as college baseball coaches, and I'm not asking for pity or anything, but you know, the timing of the summer creates some challenges from a roster management standpoint. The fact that the transfer portal opens in early June, and the Major League Baseball draft isn't until the middle of July, and now you're managed by a 34-man roster cap. So, you know, you might project things and say, well, there's no way this certain high school player is going to come to school. He's going to sign. And all of a sudden he comes to school, right? Well, there's a trickle-down effect from that. And, you know, you might have a veteran player that you believe for sure is going to sign professionally and have that opportunity. And then all of a sudden you're stunned and he doesn't get the chance, right? And you want those players back that have experience, right? But then it creates a little bit of a log jam, a little bit per se, but that is what it is. You know, everybody at the elite levels challenged by that, and those are decisions, Joel, that I look forward to.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the reasons that I love to coach, is to make those difficult decisions and then manage them after you make them.
That was one of the things I remember your introductory press conference over here at Dudy Noble Field. You had mentioned, like, you enjoy making those decisions.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, no matter what it is, a college baseball coach or, you know, any profession, when you're in a leadership role and you get to make decisions that impact other people, you know, you can't run away from them. You've got to run to them. And I'm just fortunate that I get the opportunity to make those decisions.
Well, in coming here, you had a really good indication of what Mississippi State was all about, the program, the history, the national brand that the M over S is. You competed against Mississippi State both here in Starkville and, you know, in different venues over the years. But now that you've been here, you've experienced what the crowds are like. You know, when we go down to Pensacola and it's a sold-out crowd for, you know, an exhibition game, or you come back here against Louisiana Tech and it's a packed ballpark, or you look at the Diamond Dog Classic and you have all those former players coming back and you get over 10,000 fans back from an alumni base. But as the head coach, when you see the passion that this fan base has, what does that do for you now that you've experienced it firsthand, to know that you're in charge of this program that has such a brand that people, you know, a passionate fan base that people believe in?
Well, I mean, first, it's incredibly honored to have that position, just because of the history and the storied history and the legacy here of the great players and great teams. But so much of that is driven by the fans here, right? It's there's one thing to have fans. There's another thing to have fans that really, really pour into it, right? They show up every day. You know, to see the fans at the alumni game and how excited they were to watch these players play that wore the uniform 20 years ago, right? There's just something different. There's a brand here, not only nationally for baseball and whatnot, but locally in the state of Mississippi and the Starkville, you know, community about how much they love these players that wear this M over S, and I'm incredibly proud to hold the position that I do. I'm honored, and you see somebody almost every day like Coach Polk that built this thing, and how much pride he has in it. The fact that you're in a role that one of the greatest college baseball coaches in history held is awesome, and it's why I wanted this opportunity and this challenge that is in front of us. And so, if you don't get out of bed every morning, with excitement and joy of what you're representing, you probably got something wrong with you.
Well, there are a lot of new faces on this roster, guys that are either transferring in or coming in to play college baseball for the first time or on this level for the first time. But, you've done something this fall in trying to get, former players back to speak to the team. We've had Tanner Allen, Mitch Moreland, Jake Mangum, Jeff Brantley. All those guys have been back to speak to the team. Why was that so important to get that message across, to hear from former players, guys that wore the M over S? And, no matter what era that they played in, it still means so much to those guys.
Well, Logan, first and foremost, when you play college baseball, no matter where it is, but obviously it was here at Mississippi State, what you pour into it when you were a player, right? And I got the utmost respect for that. It's not about somebody that goes on and plays in the major leagues. That's icing on the cake. But when they pour everything they have to leave their legacy on something and make it better than when they got there, right? I just believe that, one, that has to be recognized, right? And I do recognize that. And two, it needs to be celebrated, and something like the alumni game celebrates that. But the final thing is, the young men that wear our uniform, they need to hear from those guys and the passion of which they represented this place while they wore the uniform, but 20 years later that it's still in their blood, right? And so we talked earlier about intentionality with things. I just felt it was very important taking over this program to involve the former players. Now, you can't involve all of them, and that is what it is, but to be intentional when some of them are back, to just share for 10, 20 minutes with our team and with our players about what the M over S means. And I'll tell you, it's been impactful for me and the other coaches as well to hear from those guys. And, we're always learning about what this place is about. And what it's about is incredibly special.
From talking about former players to current players, let's talk for a second about the next wave. I know in asking this question, I'm probably going to have some watchers, listeners yelling at their screens or radios because they would prefer me, even on some of the other questions, to ask you about specific guys and specific themes and whatever. Time and whatever probably doesn't allow us that. But since the last time we talked to you, Coach, obviously some new signees to Mississippi State baseball and the next wave, awfully exciting. Just what's some of your general thoughts about this signing class and how you were able to, piece together the parts that you wanted, and just your overall thoughts on the group that kind of that next wave of Bulldog?
Yeah, well, certainly we talked about this the last time I was here, that, the order of priorities were to, first put together this team, the 2026 team, and then it transitioned to the 2026 recruiting class. And then the year beyond that we're working on as well, the 2027 recruits. I'm really excited about this 2026 group, right? Because I believe if you're going to have consistent success in college baseball and this level of baseball, it's going to come from recruits that then grow in the program. You can't live in a place that you're always replacing, right? And you never end out developing guys and getting consistency. There's nothing better than a freshman becoming a sophomore and a sophomore becoming a junior. right? You have an idea of what you can count on, and because you've worked with that player and seen him grow and develop. So this 2026 class was vital for us, and I feel excellent about this group of young men that decided to lock arms with us here at State. A handful of them are, rated as the top player in their state. I believe there's about 4 of those. And, they're all, a lot of them are from the Southeast. We plucked a couple from the Northeast, but some really athletic position players that can do some different things, some terrific power arms that I believe can make an immediate impact at this level of baseball. And so it's a group of guys that I think are really good athletes, that are talented, that can impact right away, but can grow with the program in years to come.
I've seen you since June, and you hit the ground running, nose to the grindstone for the last however many months that is. I mean, you and the rest of the staff have really gotten after it. But now, we're kind of slowing down a little bit with the Christmas holiday time. How are you going to spend the next few weeks? I know your family's back still in Virginia.
Yeah.
You're going to get a chance to spend some time with them and kind of relax for just a little bit, because we know the meat of the spring is going to be hard and hectic.
Yeah, Logan, it's been a great 6.5 months here. It's been awesome. And I love the work, right? And I love pouring in everything into it to make Bulldog baseball the best that we can make it. But, this is a time both for the players and for us as a staff just to, kind of catch your breath a little bit. So I will get a chance to spend a couple of weeks with my family. We'll all be together, and that will be nice. In this transition, my wife and son stayed back in Virginia for the first year until he graduates from high school. So I'll get an opportunity to spend some time with them, take my son on a little 3-day duck hunting trip in North Carolina, kind of an annual thing that we do, and just spend time together. But I can tell you, I'll be game planning a lot.
I know you well enough. I know that's going to happen.
What I'll also do too, Logan, is I'll start to put together our practice plans for the preseason and map everything out, and do some scheduling and things like that for future schedules. And and recruiting never stops. There'll be recruiting calls and things like that. But it is a chance to it's the calm before the storm a little bit, and then look forward to getting back and getting started in January and getting things cranked up.
Well, I'll try to do my part and stay out of your hair and not schedule you any more interviews to do.
That's okay.
Yeah, February 13th will be here before you know it. That season opener right around the corner. About 2 months away as we sit here and talk right now. You mentioned, obviously, January. What is kind of the calendar as far as getting after it into the preseason?
Well, we'll start full team practice January 12th. There was actually a new rule that was adopted this year in college baseball. Previously, you were only able to start full team practice 3 weeks before opening day. And they moved that up, that everybody can start January 12th. It's just shy of 5 weeks, 3 days shy of 5 weeks before opening day. And that was a great decision on the NCAA's part from a pitching standpoint, right? That you can be around them for basically 5 weeks and build them up properly. And it puts kind of everybody on equal footing. So, the guys will come back here in January, and our first full team practice will be January 12th.
You mentioned duck hunting over the Christmas break. I don't know if you're aware, but a lot of your players are fishermen.
Yeah,
and it seems like everybody on the team, they've got an Instagram page called Dogs Catching Hogs. And so is there any other outdoor activities that you enjoy doing? Because I know your players are out there fishing.
Yeah.
What are some things that you like to do when you finally get a chance to get away from the game for just a little bit?
Yeah, well, I like to hunt a little bit, deer hunt and duck hunt. And my son and I have been on this, duck hunt a couple of years now. And so, just spending a little time with him and our 2 girls that are out of college and they're out working professionally. And so, I don't fish, but, don't mind a hike every now and then with my wife, or, spend a little bit of time out in the woods or in nature. But That's pretty much it, Logan. You know, but when I get a chance to be outside and get some fresh air and you know, lay in the woods a little bit, I've been known to do that from time to time.
Well, I was going to say, you climb up in a deer stand, you get a lot of good thinking done out there.
Yes, you do, yeah, for sure.
Well, the one thing I know about you in our brief times that I've had the chance to speak is you're just ultra competitive and everything. So you do kind of do you get away from that, or over the course of the couple of weeks with your family, is there going to be some like hard hitting board games? I mean, do y'all?
Oh, there definitely be some hard hitting board games. It already happened over Thanksgiving. You know, whether it be Clue or Sorry or.
Yeah.
You know, checkers or whatever it is. It
gets intense.
each of us want to win, or a good Jenga game, whatever it is. You know, I think when you're a competitor, it's hard. Anything that you do that you don't play to win.
It's hard to turn that off.
Yeah, it is, and that's okay. I don't apologize for it.
Well, best of luck with Clue and everything over the holidays. Colonel Mustard, the hatchet in the kitchen or whatever, all that. I hope you figure it out and hope you win, Coach. We appreciate you stopping by, man. Like I said, a couple months, it'll be all going on over here at Duty Noble Field. It'll be here before we know it. But we thank you for making the time for us ahead of the holidays. I know our fans appreciate it as well.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Logan. Appreciate you having me on again. And Hail State.
Hail State.
Hail State.